Why does God remain hidden? Why doesn't he show himself to everybody? Today on Made for Glory. Oftentimes, people who struggle with faith, some people who might consider themselves ambivalent towards faith or agnostics or even atheists, they might say like, well, if I could see God, if I could experience him for myself, then yeah, I can understand having faith. But if not, then I'm having to trust the writings of some other person or the experience of another person. And that just seems unscientific. It seems unwise to do that because sometimes people lie. And people could have lied about having experiences of God. So then the question then becomes, if God is real, we claim that God is real, he's omniscient, he's omnipresent, that he's all powerful, that he has all these attributes of God, that why don't we see him? Why doesn't he reveal himself to us? And I think it's really fascinating as kind of like looking at this, the whole history of the Bible as a wrestling with this, that God has made himself known in very key ways and then invites us to step closer to him in faith. Because one of the amazing things is that God has revealed himself to people, and that does not necessarily mean that they have faith. God has revealed his heart to people. He revealed himself to the Israelites. He led them out of slavery. He did great miracles, this great giant pillar of fire and pillar of smoke, and they saw God. He smote the Egyptians, and then they still kept turning away from him. And so one of the things is maybe coming to grips with the fact that just because, even if God did reveal himself to you, that does not mean that you would then have faith. Because faith is something much more than that. Faith is actually a relationship with God. So this comes to later on in the Bible, after Jesus has died and Jesus has been raised from the dead, and we as Catholic Christians believe Jesus is God, God in the flesh, the second person of the Blessed Trinity who died and was raised up from the dead. And in the gospel, he appears to his apostles, having been raised from the dead, and they think he's a ghost. They don't know. And Jesus says, like, no, I'm real. I'm flesh and blood. He speaks peace over them. He gives them the power to forgive sins. But Thomas, who's one of the apostles, was not there. And so they tell him, Thomas, we saw Jesus. He's alive. We saw him with our own eyes. And he's like, unless I see him with my eyes, unless I touch him with my hands, unless I touch the nail marks in his hands, I won't believe. So what happens? The next week, they're all gathered and Thomas with them, and then Jesus appears. Jesus is in their midst. He says, peace be with you. He says, shalom again. And he says to Thomas, come here, put your hands here in my hands. Put your hand in my side where I was pierced by the lance. Do not be unbelieving, but believe. And then Thomas has this amazing profession of faith. He says, my Lord and my God. Recognize who Jesus is. And Jesus says these words to him, do you now believe, Thomas, because you have seen? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. So why does God do it this way? In a sense, for lack of a better phrase, that God allows us to not see him all the time. And even if you have had an encounter with God or have experienced God or seen God in some profound way, that doesn't happen, that doesn't continue every day of your life. But it allows us to grow in faith. Because faith, again, is not just this data that's the scientific formula. It's about a relationship. It's about a relationship with someone who loves us. And I've experienced the love of God. Hopefully you can have those experiences. And because of that, I continue to grow in faith. And even days where it's difficult, even days where it gets dark, where I feel very far away from God, where I don't feel it when I go to pray, in those days when I choose still to pray, when I respond to grace in that way, that's what helps me to grow as a follower of Jesus, but also helps me to invite other people as well. So why doesn't God make himself visible to all people at all times? It's because he wants to draw us closer to him in faith, which is all about a relationship. That relationship with God is also about a relationship with others as well. So being members of the church, which is filled with sinful people, I'm a priest, I'm the biggest sinner that I know, and yet God invites us into a relationship with him in the midst of a community and a family. And because of that, God becomes, we can see God's presence and realize God's presence more and more, obviously through the word of God, through prayer, through the sacraments of the church, through the community that's gathered, but also then we begin to be a sign of God's presence and the truth of who God is by our love for each other. They'll know we're Christians by the way that we love each other. And that's such an awesome sign. So when people meet you, they get a glimpse of what God is like. Faith becomes more possible because of the way that you live your life. So that's the invitation. So wherever you are in your journey of faith, if you're far away from God, if you're thinking, oh, I only believe God once he shows himself to me, why don't you try this very simple thing? And I invite you just to do this, to say just this little prayer, which is, God, if you're real, help me to experience your presence. Help me to know you are real and that you love me. God, if you're real, help me to experience your presence. Help me to know that you're real and to know that you love me. To say that prayer with confidence Again, if he's not real, then you got nothing to lose. But if he is real, he wants to have a relationship with you. And that relationship is one of infinite love. And it's through that relationship that we come to know a lot of amazing people, and come to know ourselves more, and we come to know God and come to know his mission for our lives. Whatever the original intent for social media was, it probably wasn't this.
Well, I'm sure you've seen this viral video.
And to the B.
Gaming Weekday 3.
This egg is the most liked Instagram picture.
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right?
Okay, so tell me all about this.
Yikes. See what I mean? However, at St. Dominic Media, we found a much better way to do social.
It is a joy, a pleasure to want to spend time with the Lord and with one another.
If you delight in the Lord, he would give you the desires of your heart. And so I prayed him to send me to the right church. And so he led me to the one that he established, which is the Catholic Church.
So I'm sitting in my quiet space, my time with God, praying for my grandchildren.
Understand that the devil isn't only the enemy of our souls, he's the enemy of our human nature. And so what God has joined, he wants to rupture.
Judeo-Christian values.
You corrected it. Judeo-Christian values. Your brain corrected it. Oh, that's fantastic.
Every year, we produce hundreds of dynamic, faithful Catholic videos that reach millions of people, both online and on television. At St. Dominic Media, we're doing the heavy lifting of creating good, quality Catholic content, and we'd love for you to partner with us, either by visiting stdominicmedia.com and following the share link, or by using the offertory envelopes offered by your parish from OSV. Help us sow seeds far and wide as we use new media's potential for good. Together, let us invest in and grow the kingdom.